Welcome to Complete Aviation Solutions, Deep Dive number 68.
Great to be here.
Today we're diving into a mix of recent aviation updates you shared with us. We'll be looking to pull out the key insights on things like airline finances, some operational changes, and also some important safety developments.
Yeah, our mission today is really to connect these different threads, give you a clear, sort of concise view of what's happening in aviation right now based on the info you sent over.
Okay, let's jump right in then. First up, some pretty interesting news from Etihad Airways. It looks like they're basically ready for an IPO, but the CEO is saying they don't actually need the money right now.
Yeah, it's quite a statement, isn't it? It suggests, a position of real strategic flexibility. Saying they don't need the capital implies they're feeling pretty strong financially.
Right, so the decision to go ahead, it rests with the shareholder, ADQ.
Exactly. It seems like it's more about timing and strategy from the shareholder's perspective rather than an urgent need for cash from the airline itself.
And we did see that report back in March, suggesting a possible IPO maybe Q2 next year, aiming for about $1 billion.
That's right. So the pieces seem to be in place, they're prepared, but they're likely waiting for, well, the right market conditions or for it to fit into ADQ's broader plans, keeping their options open.
Okay, now here's something interesting regarding their performance. Despite all the talk about global trade tensions, Etihad's passenger numbers are apparently quite strong.
Yeah, and one potential reason floated is the strong euro against the dollar-pegged Gulf currencies.
Making it cheaper for Europeans to travel there.
Potentially, yeah. It could be boosting demand from Europe while maybe, just maybe, softening interest from the U.S. side a little. It shows how these big economic factors filter down.
It really does. And another big plus for them, it seems, is their balance sheet. Something like 60% of their fleet is fully paid for.
Absolutely. That's a huge asset in this industry. Owning that much of your fleet outright gives you a significant buffer. If things got tough, they have assets, not just lease payments.
Gives them breathing room.
Huge breathing room. Financial flexibility is key.
And looking forward, they've got some pretty ambitious growth plans, too, adding around 20 aircraft a year.
Yeah, aiming for about 170 planes by the end of the decade. That's significant growth.
Plus, they're bringing in those new A321-200 NXLRs, the long-range ones, starting Q3 next year.
Right. That suggests they're looking at potentially longer, thinner routes where maybe a wide body isn't quite right, but they still want the range. It's about efficiency and network expansion. Modernizing, too.
We also got that really detailed list of their current fleet, everything from the A320s up to the A380s, plus the 777 freighters. Quite the mix.
It really paints a picture of the scale, doesn't it? Managing that kind of diverse fleet lets them match the right plane to the right route, which is crucial for efficiency.
And wrapping up on Etihad, their financials for fiscal 24 looked pretty solid. Revenue up substantially, about $1.4 billion year on year.
Yeah, and a decent profit after tax, too, around 463 million USD. They put it down to strong passenger and cargo revenues, plus, getting more efficient operationally.
Which, I suppose, brings us back to the IPO readiness. That strong performance definitely supports the CEO's confidence, even if they don't need the cash immediately.
Exactly. It paints a picture of an airline on a pretty strong footing right now.
Okay, let's switch gears now. We need to talk about power banks on flights. It seems like the rules are getting tighter pretty much everywhere.
They really are. And it's a direct result of these fire incidents involving the lithium-ion batteries inside them. Safety is paramount, so airlines and regulators are taking notice.
There was that really serious incident on an Air Busan A321 back in January, wasn't there? Injured several people.
Yes, and the power bank was apparently in an overhead bin. That's obviously very concerning because if something goes wrong up there, it's not immediately accessible.
And it's not just isolated incidents, right? The FAA in the U.S. logged, 19 similar events just in the year leading up to April?
That's the figure, yes,
Yeah.
including one on an American Airlines flight more recently. So it's a pattern, a recurring issue that needs addressing.
Which explains why authorities like KISA in Australia are running campaigns now, really hammering home that these things belong in carry-on baggage only. Absolutely. The logic is simple. If it's in the cabin, the crew can see it, they can get to it, they can deal with the problem quickly. In the cargo hold, much, much harder.
And IATA, the international body, they classify them as spare lithium batteries too, recommending carry-on only.
Right, and the TSA in the U.S. has gone further, outright banning them from checked bags since March 1st, with potential fines too.
So pretty clear message there. We're also seeing several Asian carriers taking a very cautious line.
Yeah. Airlines like Cathay Pacific, Singapore Airlines, Scoot, Thai, Many are now prohibiting using or even charging power banks during the flight. And some, like Cathay, are even banning them from the overhead lockers specifically.
Correct. That's likely an extra precaution, keeping them where they can be easily monitored, not tucked away overhead. It's all about minimizing risk in flight.
And the European and UK authorities, EASA and the CAA, same
Yeah.
message.
Pretty much. Carry on only, and definitely no charging on board. The consensus is really strong. Keep them with you, don't charge them.
Now, what about down under? Qantas, Jetstar, Virgin Australia, they seem to allow them, but with limits.
Yeah, they generally permit them in carry-on, but with restrictions on the watt-hour rating, usually 100 weight, maybe up to 160 weight with prior approval. And they have to be undamaged, of course.
And Qantas specifically says no, using them during takeoff and landing.
Right, an extra layer of safety during those critical flight phases. The watt-hour limits are about capping the potential energy, the size of the fire if something did go wrong.
It's also interesting how the actual availability of onboard charging varies so much. Like Qantas's new A220s have ports everywhere.
Whereas Jetstar, generally not, unless maybe you're on a Dreamliner or an A321neo internationally, and Virgin's rolling them out but doesn't guarantee them yet.
So you can't always rely on charging your devices using the plane's power, especially with these new restrictions on using your own power bank for charging on some airlines.
Exactly, something passengers definitely need to be aware of and check beforehand.
And one last point on this. Virgin Australia had some specific backing advice.
Yeah, keep them in original packaging or a protective pouch, or at least tape over the terminals. It's all about preventing accidental short circuits during handling. Simple precautions.
Makes sense. Okay, let's turn to our final topic then. Thai Airways. Looks like they might be nearing the end of their business rehabilitation process.
That's right. The administrators overseeing the whole thing have petitioned the court in Bangkok to formally exit the process. It's a big milestone.
And this comes after they reported successfully implementing the rehabilitation plan. They went into this back in September 2020 because of insolvency, right?
Correct. It's been a long road. To get to this point, they had to meet some key criteria, things like increasing their capital, making sure they haven't defaulted on repayments, getting back to profitability, having positive shareholder equity again, and appointing new directors.
So hitting those targets is huge. Exiting rehabilitation would be a really significant step in the recovery.
Absolutely. It signals a major turnaround after a period of, well, pretty severe financial distress and restructuring, a return to more normal operations.
Now, separately, but related in a way, there was also news about that bribery case involving former Thai executives being dismissed.
Yes, the Central Criminal Court dismissed a case against a former chairman and a former finance director. It related to fleet procurement back in the early 2000s.
Involved Rolls-Royce engines for 777s and A340s.
That's the one. Rolls-Royce had previously admitted making payments to intermediaries in Thailand around that time.
But the court dismissed this specific case against the executives, saying there wasn't enough evidence from the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Apparently so. So that particular legal chapter might be closed, but it's part of the complex history that the airline has been moving forward from during this rehabilitation.
Right. So as we wrap this up then, what are the main threads we've pulled out today?
Well, we've seen Etihad showing financial strength and strategic positioning with this IPO readiness.
We've definitely dug into the evolving power bank rules, a clear trend driven by safety concerns that affect pretty much everyone who flies.
And finally, that significant step for Thai Airways potentially emerging from a really tough rehabilitation process, a story of recovery.
So you've got strategic finance, operational safety adjustments, and airline recovery all happening at once.
Exactly. These different pieces really give you a snapshot of just how dynamic the aviation world is right now. Constant change, constant adaptation.
So what stands out most to you from all this? What questions does it raise about where air travel is heading? This deep dive gives you the overview, but there's always more to consider about the implications of these trends.